Well, I'm unable to be with you today during the assessment retreat, so I'm recording a session here, recording for you a little bit about how assessment's been handled in the College of Education and Technology as part of our accreditation process. And first off, to give you a perspective on it, is that the COET, College of Education and Technology, is required to have it as part of its national accreditation and state accreditation to provide teachers licensures, both at what we call the initial level, which is the undergraduate, those that are going to be primary teachers in the school, to the advanced level, which are those administrators, principals, counselors. And as part of that, we're required to turn in data for a national visit and accreditation about our data about our candidates, if they're able to perform up to the task, meet standards that are established both in the state and nationally, and have documentation and evidence and plans on how we work to improve and assure that we produce the highest quality teachers and administrators possible. And so what I wanted to share with you is that is just a little bit about how we've approached that, because we have an excess of 400 different individuals that we collect data from each semester. And that's a very large job to handle, not only from the fact that we collect with something in the order of 15 to 20 instruments, which is too much, and we're working to narrow that down, but also the fact that we have to interpret that and involve everybody involved in what we call the unit, which is not only the College of Education and Technology, but it could be administrators in the field, teachers in the field, and secondary faculty, or faculty who work with our secondary candidates from each of the College of Arts and Sciences, as well as the College of Business and Health and Allied Sciences. So we represent, our unit represents the larger community, the stakeholders involved in the preparation of teachers, both from the hiring and the preparation. So where do we start at? Well, to begin with, our outcomes are guided by state requirements that are established at the program level, which means those of you that are in departments that offer teacher licensure in a discipline, you deal with that particular aspect, where you have you have something in the order of anywhere from 5 to 18 different standards that you have to verify that teachers indeed have the content knowledge, the ability to do assessment, evaluate student learning, the whole gamut. And the content knowledge usually accounts for about half of that, which requires not just a test to show that, or even a placement test, but a creative way of using either grades or particular assignments or whatever you may use, as well as the ability to apply that knowledge in teaching. And we have a similar system with the administrative level. So it's very a great deal of data comes in. And at the national level, one of the things we have to show is our ability to address our conceptual framework. Conceptual framework is where we've identified, in the case currently we had 7 different areas that we felt that we had certain standards that we wanted teachers to meet. So that could have been on pedagogical content knowledge, the content knowledge, assessment knowledge, knowing about the social and cultural milieu of a particular school system and how that plays into the instruction. Several things with that all lead to our vision of what we call the professional educator. So to get all this data in, we initially tried to look at some electronic portfolio things and some purchase software, but we weren't satisfied with what we did. And so about something in the order of about 10 years ago now, it's about that time, or 7 years ago, we started moving from initially reporting in Excel spreadsheets, where if it was a particular measure that had to do, for example, the student teaching evaluation, that would be a measure, or if it was a disposition assessment, or if it was an assessment that had to do with somebody's ability to design classroom management plans. All of those pieces had to be collected and turned in and submitted, at least initially with electronics. And we had a rubric that was a scoring guide. We had so many points that each was available, and all of these things. And so we may have been looking at, in any given program, any given student, we would have something in the order of 20 or 30 different measures. And so it gets to be rather cumbersome to try to use an Excel spreadsheet and do it. And so the College of Education, using Lance Gerstner as our technology person, with the input of everybody who's involved in this process, developed what we called STARS, which means a systematic technology-assisted reporting system. a very fancy name for just to say that we have a technology that we've developed, a web-based platform where people enter in their scores, and the people I'm talking about are program heads. So that may be, for example, I report for Earth and Space Science, students that are going through that, or I report on physics students, and somebody in chemistry does chemistry, somebody in math, and we would report at the program level for those, and at what we call the larger, the unit level, which is the whole College of Education Technology. It may have been student teaching evaluations by university supervisors or the cooperating teacher, wherever this source came in from. But it's all electronic, all comes in one place, and then something has to be done. The way that we decided to approach this, and we did this very early on, even before we had STARS, is we set our processes that people will input their data. We'll collect that in. And then it's put out, and there's an assessment committee, which is composed of something generally about 10 people, and that assessment committee then takes that data on an annual basis and reviews it and parses it out aligned with our conceptual framework, because we're looking at the unit. And with that teams, we have appointed people that were responsible for whatever aspect of the unit we're measuring, is that they would then prepare a notebook, and then we would invite something in the order of 50 to 60 people to come in each November and to be divided out into a particular area that we were going to assess and look at the data related to that area. So it may have been 8 or 10 different measurements that we had, and their task was to say, one, do we have sufficient data? Is the data valid? Is the second piece. Does the data answer the question relative to the conceptual framework element that we're looking at? Is the big picture? And what do we have to do to improve in the future? And out of this, during this day-long process, people come together and they would go through and they would interpret it. Of course, there was some pre-interpretation by the assessment committee, but they would take it, synthesize it, interpret it, and make action steps. And each year out of the data retreat, we had action steps, which were things we said, based on the data, everything is data-driven. Based on the data, here's what we will do to improve in the future. And we will expect to see this reported back within a 1-year, 2-year, or 3-year scale. So whatever we did, based on the data, decided what we would change to try to improve the performance of the students. That would happen at the whole unit level, and that was a one-day event, and then through the year, the assessment committee, of which I chair, is that we then would put those recommendations to action steps, of which it would go through a process of approval, and the dean would then put in place and assign people to it. And it's worked very well, and in fact, it was one of our strongest elements within the last examination. At the program level, a similar process occurs, but it's done with just data about the program level to prepare a teacher in a given level. Sorry I couldn't be with you today, but if you have further questions, please feel free to contact me.